This is a great thing for AI is tell me so that I will stop waffling. Well, it wasn't helpful, David.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a guy I posted online recently. How do we know what artificial intelligence even is when we don't even know what intelligence really is?
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 462 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims with HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Garden as we re-record this.
Well, the beginning always feels like it's redundant. Can we just run them together? But when we have equipment failures in the middle of recording, it doesn't happen often. Normally, it's just that one take and we're done. Moving on.
Yep. So you guys get the benefit of hearing it the first time again.
Sometimes it's better, sometimes not so much. So roll of the dice, folks. Roll of the dice. There we go.
Yep. So we're going to get into it because we've already done this one time before. We do want to say thanks for those who constantly listen and are a fan. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
You can head on over to helpmewithhipaa.com if you want to know more about what we do and how we help you in your organization. You can find out more about me and Donna and what we do separately and together, because that's what we do. All righty. Let's dive right into the HIPAA briefs and talk about some OCR updates because of Change Healthcare and the breach notifications.
Yeah. HIPAA brief is that there's been an update to the briefing. No, I don't know. The OCR did post an update on their FAQ, FAQ, frequently asked questions page, that they had to bring up for Change Healthcare, and it updated some specifics concerning how breach notifications about their specifics, covered entities affected by the Change Healthcare breach may delegate to Change Healthcare the task of providing the required HIPAA breach notifications on their behalf. Note, they did not say that Change Healthcare will do it. They said that you are allowed to do it. Change Healthcare, I can't imagine they would be silly enough to say, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, that would just be silly.
Yeah, it would be.
So, only one entity, which could be the covered entity itself or Change Healthcare, needs to complete breach notifications to individuals, HHS, and where applicable, the media. So that's good. The whole one big shebang. But I mean, that's really the way it always kind of works. But anyway.
Yeah, just a reminder.
Yeah. But, well, I mean, some people, they have a vendor do an announcement and then they do one and report it, but I don't know.
You only do that for good stuff.
I know, right? And then the third thing, if covered entities work with Change Healthcare to perform the required notifications in a manner consistent with, so if they work with Change Healthcare to do what you're supposed to do, you don't have to do any more. You're good.
Cool.
So as far as the notifications go, that's it. You're good to go. We're not going to enforce anything. And, maybe there's some people that have never had to do. I hope that people have done the single patient breach notifications. I love it when people are like, well, we've never had to do one. And I'm like, you have to do that with one patient, right? And they're like, no, you don't. And so I explained, and I was like, so you've never had any of these happen? Well, that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
There is that.
Yeah. So we know that there's going to be millions. I would say over 100 million. I mean, when you think about Anthem was 84 million in 2016. And these guys are way bigger and had way more stuff. So there's no way to know just how many millions. So the good news is you're not paying to send out any part of those millions of notifications.
Yeah.
But that brings it up to a HIPAA say, what? element?
I know. So this is something we talk about often, really, is you need to be checking your business associate agreements, because it outlines what's going to happen when things like this happen.
Who's responsible? And the default, like if you just use what so many people do, here's the template, here's the default, we just use it, or I just sign it, just sign whatever, and you don't even know what's in them. There's that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That, now's the time to check all that out and renegotiate. And as always, it's downstream that you have the most control, upstream, less. But then it gets into, well, I'm the big company and I don't make changes for anybody. But now would be the time to start asking those questions, because of this particular situation it's brought it to the forefront that you could make this. I need you to say that you will cover the cost of making these notifications, that you will do this if you are the reason that there is one. And when are you going to put this kind of information in the BAA? Now, if you are the one in control of the BAA, then make sure it's in there. That the downstream, if the downstream is responsible anywhere. So, David, I'm going to sign a downstream with you. And if it's anything that it happened because of something, and we now know statistical likelihood, a human error somewhere in your stream, the whole stream. So that means one of your vendors, it's on you to deal with.
Yeah.
Don't send it back up to me. You can negotiate downstream. So I want to make sure that that's in there. And a lot of people have this understanding of, oh, well, that's the covered entity's responsibility. Well, here's proof that is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
So you better have a plan. And the number of days, if you say nothing about how long they have to notify you, they have 60 days. And you don't want that.
Right.
Something's going to blow up in your face.
And if you are carrying insurance, especially a business associate, and you've said we will cover that cost, you better make sure that you have insurance that will help cover that.
Yeah. Yeah. And count on like $4 or $5 just for the notification. I think it was $3 and something, but $4 or $5 per patient.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, 100 million. Oops.
That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
All right. So you got a quick follow up here.
Well, you found both of these, and we both were like, that's a bad idea. Now we know it is.
But this is something new. Like, this wasn't in the first recording we did a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Just to show you how quickly things change. So we mentioned that Windows 11 has this new feature coming out, or is out. I haven't even looked at it deeper enough yet, but it's called recall.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it a couple episodes ago where it's taking constant screenshots of your screen so that it can recall
what you've done.
Yeah. And it's, I agree with the guy who wrote the article about, why in the world would I ever want this?
Yeah.
It's like, no. Well, already, and what, 2 weeks since it's been announced, I guess, there is already a hacker tool that can extract all the data collected by this new recall thing.
Yeah. I think it was the last episode we just talked about how this is why you need to get on top of AI. Because this kind of stuff is creeping in and people are going to start using it. So there you go. But
yeah.
wow.
Yes. The article from Wired Magazine, you can go to this episode on helpmewithhippa.com and look at the episode notes, get a link to that article. But yeah, if you have recall on, turn it off. I would recommend. If you're in IT, make sure your clients have it turned off. I got to dig deeper into it to see if it's something we can turn off en masse and push that out. I'm not even sure if it's on by default. I haven't got there yet. That's on my list for this week to get a little bit deeper into that thing to figure it out. But be aware it is out there, and be aware it is already something hackers are targeting.
Yes. Surely it won't be default on that.
Don't assume. Which brings us to our main topic, and fits right in here, which is the 7 crucial steps to a comprehensive SRA.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you're running Windows 11 with recall, it would probably come up in an SRA.
You would hope. You would hope.
You would hope.
Well,
So-
I mean, at this point, AI tools gathering data that we don't know about should be on the SRA, essentially.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. So, but how to phrase that, I'm still not sure exactly how to phrase all of the, right now it's like AI screws things up. That goes, that's it. That's it. Yeah. There's too many ways.
Yeah. Well, for everything that can become a benefit of AI, it can probably also be a problem with AI, depending on how it's used and everything else around it.
Yeah. A lot of scary stuff, a lot of exciting stuff, but there's a lot of scary stuff, but there's a lot of exciting stuff. All right. So, but we do the SRA, we bring it up because of so many things, primarily because OCR has said they're starting an SRA enforcement initiative.
Mm-hmm.
We have talked about this many, many times about how to do one, what to do. We're just kind of refreshing the 7 crucial steps that you need to make sure are part of your process.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get started, let's be clear what an SRA is not. Because all the people that say, oh, we do our, IT does our SRA, we're good. You better stop and ask some questions.
Well, do you want to back up and even cover SRA? Is it analysis? Is it an assessment? What's the A?
Yeah, true that. It's a mess.
It's both.
so that's the thing, is that security risk analysis and security risk assessment are both mentioned in HIPAA, and they are often used interchangeably across all risk management discussions.
Mm-hmm.
We try to, because it is mentioned 2 different ways in HIPAA, we try to draw a line. And, the analysis is, let me look at what I got to protect and what could happen to it and what my plan is to do that. That's the analysis part. The assessment is, so how am I doing on doing that?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. However, it is, as we both know, I commonly go back and forth between misconception and misperception. And I did ask ChatGPT, clear this up for me, because this is a great thing for AI, is tell me so that I will stop waffling. Well, it wasn't helpful, David.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of a guy I posted online recently. How do we know what artificial intelligence even is when we don't even know what intelligence really is?
Yeah. I mean, it gave me an answer, and it's clearly an answer to my question, but it doesn't solve the problem that I have, because a misconception refers to a view or opinion that is incorrect because it's based on faulty thinking or understanding. So people incorrectly believe that a gap analysis is the same as a security risk analysis. That's a misconception. I'm like, cool, I got it. But what's a misperception, on the other hand, refers to an incorrect understanding or interpretation of a particular situation or thing. Wait, what? A misconception is more appropriate for highlighting a widespread incorrect belief or understanding.
Okay.
Basically, there's so much misconception, we do have a misperception.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, when you look at the difference between the security risk analysis and the security risk assessment, I think it's probably safe to say most people aren't even doing the analysis part to get to the assessment part.
No, they're just doing the assessment part, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of them are just going to the risk management. Like,
yeah. Well, they do the how am I doing on what I think I'm supposed to be doing? That's it.
Yeah.
But who's figuring out what you're supposed to be doing? Well, isn't that just HIPAA? Okay, now we're going down the rabbit hole of what is not an SRA. So first and foremost, this is not a paperwork exercise.
No.
The objective is not to complete paperwork. While you need to document what you're doing, creating the documentation is not the objective of the work you're doing. So change your going in. If that's what you've always thought, somebody do that so we can put it no. Mm-mm.
Change your stinking thinking.
Oh, there you go. An SRA is not a review of the HIPAA security rule requirements. That is what most people do. It's an assessment. Here's what HIPAA says I'm doing. Am I doing it?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things it says you're supposed to do is a security risk analysis and an assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing you're worried about is whether or not you're compliant. That's your only risk. My only risk is whether or not I am compliant with HIPAA.
No.
No. So that is called a gap analysis. Here is the requirement, and here's what I'm doing for the requirement. Has nothing to do with analyzing what you need to protect. Where does it live, move, and breathe, and what could go wrong? That is what we need. So going back to 2018, I found where OCR was trying to clear that up in a very polite way. They're always very gently going, "Hey."
Yeah. So when as far as risk areas, since you bring that up, I'm actually doing a talk about supply chain risk management in healthcare, and so I got this graph up in front of me, and the risk areas, like you bring up compliance, and that's what people typically look at. What is our risk of failing compliance? However, here are the other areas: operational risk, safety risk, like patient safety, competitive risk, quality risk, reputational risk. We mentioned compliance already. Secondary risk, which is risk to others, geopolitical risk. So there you go.
Did you say
those
financial,
are all the things.
Strategic.
Those I guess are lumped in under operational.
Yeah.
But yeah. There's just so many. So to your point, if you're just looking at it like, we've got to make sure we're doing the thing so we can get our HIPAA certification.
Both are wrong. Yeah. All right. Number 3. Oh, I know you love it when you get a call. Can't you just do this, David?
Yeah. It's, so an SRA is not just generating some kind of IT reports or scans. And, this has been prevalent in the IT industry for years because there are vendors out there that purport that that's what their tool does. Just run this tool, create these scans, and you have got an SRA that you can hand to your clients. Now, the problem with it is that they're not 100% wrong. They're not 100% right, meaning it is a security risk analysis. However, it is not the same security risk analysis that HIPAA wants you to do. So using same terminology, but very different meanings. Because if I'm looking at your IT security and I'm running a risk analysis on your IT security, it is an SRA, but it is not what a healthcare SRA is for. It's not looking at the entire organization and all those risk factors and areas that I just brought up.
A complete and thorough, comprehensive SRA.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because those don't look so much as human error, physical security, third-party risk, all those kind of things. And what about technology assets that you don't even manage?
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I believe that complete and thorough is what OCR tends to put on their settlements. There was not a complete and thorough SRA.
I think it's even that way in HIPAA specifically.
Yeah. But so if your IT company is running a scan and handing it to you, that is part of the information you need, but that is not a complete and thorough SRA.
Right. I mean, these are components. It's not, and I think that's a big thing, is that all the things that we've just talked about, these are part of one, but they are not the SRA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like a penetration test falls under that same list of IT scans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've gotten calls before. I need a penetration test so I can do my SRA. Wait, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it should be part of it, but let's be clear on what you're doing. You know, so we go through that. But
yeah, that's always a fun conversation, because then it's like, okay, here's the 9 different pen tests.
Right.
Which one do you want?
yeah, I mean,
it's not just a pen test.
yeah, it's not like something you go and buy at the store, and it's like, go buy some mayonnaise. I don't care which one, just get some mayonnaise. Okay.
Yeah. Then you come back with Hellman's or
Dukes. It's Dukes, people.
I know it's Dukes. You people in the parts of the country that can't get that, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That's your real Southern mayo right there. All right.
Yeah.
Number 4, an SRA is not something you do once every 2 or 3 years.
No, it shouldn't be. I get it though. Like once you finally do one, especially if you do it right, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again.
But if you do them every year, they're easier to do, and you can't, you know.
Yeah, it is. It's like anything else. It's once you get to the maintenance mode of it, like you've already done all the hard work, and you can like, okay, we've done it. Now let's just maintain it, and then do them again. But they don't take as much time or energy or effort, especially if you're doing the mini SRAs. Which, do you want to explain what that is if they don't know?
Yeah. So what you're supposed to do is you do these annual ones as like an exercise to see how you're doing. But if you make any kind of major technology change or a change in your business that, you know, impacts it, like you're going to add a whole new line of service, you're going to bring in a new medical device, you're going to expand in any way, even adding on, we're going to blow out this wall and take over the office next to us. You should sit down and evaluate how that will impact the entire organization, but focus on, instead of everything in the whole wide world, focus on that particular event and do an SRA of what can go wrong while we're doing this.
Yeah.
That, in order to differentiate, we call that a mini SRA. We have a mini and a maxi. Max and mini.
Yeah, I know going to the cloud is certainly one that everybody should have done at some point.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk about a mini SRA panic, that would be during the COVID transition to work from home, when it's like you're completely changing the way you do business. And did you do any type of SRA or mini SRA to figure out what your risks are? Most people didn't.
We didn't have time. And it was like doing this tomorrow.
Yeah. The problem is there was no, like, I get that you don't have time to spend a week on it,
but you should be doing it as you go.
Yeah. Or at least calling and saying, okay, we got to do work from home. Matter of fact, we are working from home. How can we, at least mitigate some risk? I mean, I still to today, not like today, but this year, I still have people that are calling me and saying, we have people working from home and need to figure out how to mitigate the risk. And how long have they been working from home? 4 years? Oh, 4 years later, you're just now asking that question?
Hey, but they're doing it. Give them a break, right?
They are doing it, so.
All right. So you should do those as well. And those then, which only brings our number 5, an SRA is not something you do and put it on the shelf until next time.
Yeah.
These should be, it's a living document that we create, that we're constantly evaluating and updating. And even like, okay, we put a stake in the ground and say, okay, that's our final report for here. But now we have our risk management plan, and we're going to continue to update it. And we'll reference our risk analysis anytime we're trying to decide what to do. And, are we worried about that? Have we worried about that? And, as I often say, perfect is the enemy of done. So you will never have everything you're supposed to have. You just don't want to miss a giant thing. Like, we completely missed an entire department of the company. That's a giant thing. Don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put a stake in the ground with this comment here, which is, we used to say, not just us, but we in healthcare used to say, we want to create a culture of compliance within an organization.
Right.
That to me, and this is my stake in the ground, is that is no longer acceptable. It should be a culture of risk management in your organization.
Yeah, or just privacy and security.
Culture of privacy and security. It can't just be compliance anymore, because that's when you do get people that are only concerned about compliance because your culture is compliance. So I think that was good for the past, but that is no longer what it is. It changes, and that's the nature of privacy and security. Is it rapidly changes, and we have to rapidly change with it. And what was good a few years ago is not good now. And this is one of those things where I believe that we have to start shifting away from the culture of compliance into a culture of privacy and security and a culture of risk management.
I concur that this is a shared responsibility. So we have to look at it as we're all responsible all the time. And you can't do that unless the culture fosters it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
what is an SRA then?
Now we've been through what isn't one. So in order to do one, and I use the analogy that our expression that privacy and security is not a project you complete. It's a chronic condition you treat.
Mm-hmm.
It works in healthcare. Who would have thought? You compare your SRA is like your annual physical, right? Your annual visit where they check all the systems. They try to evaluate where everything is and what's going on in your life,
mm-hmm.
And they look at things differently if like you're a professional stunt person versus you work at a computer all day. You've got different risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's just all it is. So it depends on so many things, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Check, they don't just come in and go, let me see those ears, David, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. As somebody who's recently had a colonoscopy,
yeah,
it is definitely a condition that you keep an eye on.
Yeah. But, they check everywhere, and they draw blood and they do. That is exactly what we're talking about, is
Mm-hmm.
a complete and thorough physical, not just
Right.
I grew up in the country, and the country doctor, how you feeling, Donna? I'm feeling good. All right, we did your physical. Because I saw you the last 3 weeks where you broke something, cut something.
Yeah.
But that's why you need to look at it. The difference is we talked about the risk you face, and what you need to understand is all of your systems that connect to the internet, they live in a very dangerous world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like I was doing a training class yesterday, and I told them, it's like, you need to understand when you're treating your condition, and it is your condition, it is all ours, that bombs are going off in the distance, cars are racing by, debris swirling around. Everywhere you look, there's a little nick or cut, can be open for, filthy, nasty bacteria that'll take hold. You'll lose a leg, and all of, and don't forget the tiny little dot inside that could become a tumor at any minute and become a whole new problem. And you could have a tumor that's malignant and a tumor that's not. And all of that is what your computers are doing, except constantly. Every single one of them is fighting that. Everything that's connected is fighting against that. So now that we made everybody feel good, let's do those 7 steps.
All right, sure. Well, let's start at the beginning. So step number 1, we have to define what is important, or defining our scope.
Yeah. So if you're going to focus only on compliance, which we've already talked about, not really a good thing, but you focus on only where is PHI. I'm only going to worry about my PHI. Where is my PHI?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say you should worry about your financials, your payroll, your proprietary stuff. If you're going to be out there looking around, and you got to look everywhere, why not account for everything that's important to you?
Yeah. Because you got other things too, because you got PCI compliance and all this kind of stuff that you could kind of do it all while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, I had a cyber liability insurance application I was reviewing yesterday, Tokyo Marine, and one of the questions was, do you deal with payment cards and are you PCI compliant? And that was on their cyber, I guess you could say your cyber risk application.
Well, you didn't even think about it. I'm sure you just said yes. Yes.
I didn't say anything because it was for somebody else. I'm like, I don't know if you do all this stuff.
But they're going to come back and ask you.
Yeah. Are we doing it? I mean, it's like anything else. It's I can only answer from the standpoint of your cybersecurity, but I can't answer for your business processes or your people. I don't know what you're doing. And even if you tell me what you're doing, you could change it tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility.
Yeah. And that's why you have to participate in this. I can't just do this for you. Yep. This is about your business. And if you are not participating and thinking this through, and I know nobody likes having to do these kind of things. Nobody likes having to go have a physical.
That's true.
But it will not be a physical of you if you send someone else to do it on your behalf.
Hey, that's an idea.
I know. I just thought of that.
I wonder how well that would work. Just go tell them you're me. Turn your head and cough. Let me know.
Drink that stuff they gave you. You know, that prep period before that colonoscopy.
Yeah, I went the pill route. I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I know that. I prefer that than drinking all that stuff. Anyway, so you need to spend the time to define this. And part of defining it is, what are we going to include? We'll also then define, like, how far am I going to look? You know, I'm just going to see the cardiologist. They're still probably going to ask you about some other stuff that you're not just your heart, you know, but we're talking a complete and thorough physical here. So that says how far we're going to look. We're going to look at everything, and we're going to look to see what's valuable in there. And these are the things that we classify in our organization as valuable to us. Now, you got the basics, PHI, credit card information, financials. People often forget about payroll, but it's huge. It's like one of the top things they go after is get those W-2s, those social security numbers, all of those kind of things. They got something they can work with quick. And then, of course, all of the information that could be used for someone else's gain that you are using for your own, you know, if you're involved in research and if you have systems and processes that are your unique secret sauce. So we define all of that, and we agree this is what we're going to look at, and then we go to step 2.
Step 2. So that's when we start collecting data and getting the details together. And this is where, you know, your scans from IT and stuff like that are very valuable.
But they're only a part of it.
They are only a part of it.
Because your scan will not tell us how many cloud solutions they used.
No, not typically.
Yeah.
Not typically.
Well, I mean, as part of this whole, you know, things have changed so much. They're rapidly changing. I have like completely reevaluated our entire SRA process in the last few months and rebuilt our data collection methods and processes so that we gather better data and more data. Yes, more data. Because data creates data.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, some of the things you talk about cloud and stuff. Some things I run into is people don't realize that they still have data in the cloud somewhere because maybe they move platforms and they still have access to the old platform. Or my favorite is when somebody says, or I say, are you guys using Dropbox? Because I'm seeing activity, come through that people are using Dropbox. And no, we don't use Dropbox. And then somebody else is like, what do you mean? We've been using Dropbox for the last 2 years. Oh man, that's always fun.
Yeah. That's not allowed. Well, are you blocking it? Because that's the only way it won't be allowed. I use it for one thing, this podcast. And it's constantly trying to get me to upgrade, but At any rate,
You too, huh?
but it is a complete inventory of everything. You're supposed to look everywhere. You're drawing blood. You're checking the eyes, the ears, other parts where you have to turn your head and cough. I mean, you are checking everything and requesting tests be run on all the things that need to be checked. Right? And that means you have to do an inventory of all of those things. If I don't have an inventory of all of our equipment and not just the computers, that's also my favorite. Well, IT gave us this inventory. That's our inventory.
Yeah. That's part of it.
Does this have all of your routers and access points and switches? Often no, it's just a list of the computers that are being monitored. So it doesn't have any of the infrastructure stuff. Does this have all your printers, scanners, and copiers? Oops. No, it doesn't. Does this have all your medical devices? Oh, does it have all your mobile devices? Does it have, and you just keep asking. It has to be a complete inventory.
Yeah. And the hard part about that is like we can give you an inventory of everything that's pulling an IP address. The problem is that sometimes we have no earthly idea what it is.
Exactly.
I can tell you there's a device pulling an IP address, and sometimes might be able to tell you some other things about it. But when you say, well, what is it and where's it at? I have no idea. I just know it is connected somewhere.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than trying to do that. Like even on my home network, I try to account for everything, always, and I check it regularly. And sometimes you're like, all right, I plugged in 3 things. What is that? What is that one thing? And it's not, the thing. But anyway, it is, the process is onerous. Let's just say it's really freaking hard. And you could use something else besides freaking. This is the part that I cannot do for you. I can help you do it, but there's no way I know what's happening in your business. And that's what this is about, is finding out how data is created, received, maintained, and transmitted. How does it come in? Where does it move around? And how does it go out? I need to know all of that about all of the important data. And by the way, David, you should document all this.
Of course.
Yeah, because you want to document, but you also want to document who was involved in looking this stuff up, because I can't tell you the number of times it'd be like, well, who gave you this? I don't know. I'm assuming it's blah.
Yeah. Who gave it to you? How did we get it? Where did it come from?
Yeah. Yeah. So you want, you got to reference this 4, 5, 6 years from now. I'm not going to remember. Everybody counts on me to remember stuff, and they need to get over that, because that's starting to go downhill, folks. Etch-a-Sketch is moving faster.
That's why I'm getting the pendant, the limitless pendant.
I know. Please tell me what happened to my life today.
It's going to be a sad story.
Yeah. So you have to ask everywhere. You need to do an inventory of what everybody's using. This is where we do those surveys, and we ask the people that are actually using the data how they're using the data and what they do. Tell me the steps you go through. What tools are you using? And you'll learn amazing things. Almost always, you're going to learn at least one thing that's happening that it not necessarily something you told them not to do. It's that it never occurred to you they would do that. That's the big thing is, do you text information? Well, yes, but what do you text? That's a huge problem in healthcare. I know you want that instantaneous conversation. We need to make sure you're using the right tool. And that's where IT gets in trouble. When I sat in on this one argument between an IT director and a clinical director, where I was discussing texting, and before I could even get anything out of, do you do this? Because they have all these locations, they are exchanging somehow some instant message. I couldn't even get it out, and then the fight started again. IT is saying, no, you cannot do that. You will not do that. And they're saying, I have to treat the patients. I have to do. And it was like, it took me forever. You could tell this had been going on for a while. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. IT cannot be the department of no. IT needs to be, we can't do it that way, but let's work together to find a secure way to do it. On the flip side of that, though, is you can't say, IT said no and I don't care.
Yeah.
You have to go, there's a reason they're telling me not to do this. I need to work with them to get the end result I'm looking for in a secure way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it takes, oh, wait, that's a culture of privacy and security. Oh my God. We just explained it.
We did.
All right. So this is the hardest part. And this is the reason when everybody asks me, is it going to be cheaper next year? My point is this part and all the other part, I spend the same amount of time. It will be cheaper on your resources if you will do this and maintain it.
Yeah.
It will get cheaper on your end, not on what I charge you. My work never changes. My amount of work is basically the same. I may have to hold your hand a little more, but that's kind of built in to our process of some people need hand holding, and we don't do it like last time we held your hand, so this time we're not. We don't know who's going to be involved. We don't know what's changed, so we just expect that is going to happen. And sometimes more, sometimes less. It'll get on a wash. So in the big picture, this part is the part that requires you the most.
Yeah. And hopefully if you're documenting everything, then you understand who did it last time, how you did it last time, where you got the information from, how you collected the data, so that you cut out all that extra work.
Right. And so once you have these things, if you maintain them by reviewing them, and we'll get to that again, you review them on a regular basis. Monthly would be great, depending on what resources you have available. Quarterly is the minimum. And annual on top of that. Review this stuff. If you don't, it will take longer. You know, if I do a little bit constantly, I never have to do a lot at one time. You know, it's kind of like laundry. So, all right. So then we get to step number 3.
Yep. So here, that's when we're going to start looking at what the threats and vulnerabilities are. So basically, we just want to identify what those are, the potential problems, all those types of things.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. This is where the fun part is. Like, break out the whiteboards. You know, it's like, what all can go wrong? And of course, you know, for me, I'm like, you should certainly put ransomware on there. Oh. You know, some type of cyber incident.
Yeah, different cyber attacks. We have like 4 or 5 different ones on our list.
You got your normal ones like, you know, fire and flooding and natural disasters, depending on where you're at. Like some places, hurricane might be more common than tornadoes. And as you like to always bring up, the flooding can happen whether you're in a flood zone or not.
Yes, please, people, please. Flooding is a serious thing you should always consider. And power outages, extensive power outages. Those are things that you need to have a plan for.
Yeah, or even extensive internet outages as you just recently experienced.
Yes. I'm still, but you know, other people are experiencing them too. I'm just glad I knew exactly, okay, this substation's got a part that's been going out. I could tell.
Yeah.
You know, and then once we saw the trucks at that substation, we're like, score! You know, because they figured it out. They test it. They know that's the part. They order the part. Somebody has to come install it. Yeah. All right, great. I can handle it. But the bigger outages that have been happening, I don't know. But you think about human error, you better have all kinds of human error. We just talked about it's statistical likelihood, 70-30, somewhere in there. So again, remember what I talked about of the world you're network lives in very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to worry about things like where your building is,
Yeah.
how things, your equipment and theft and, anything that could fail or be used against you should be on this list.
Yeah. And don't forget vendors.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Supply chain issues,
Yeah.
So sometimes it's supply chain issues of you can't have that. You cannot get to that because we cannot supply it. And then others, it's we did supply it, but we kind of screwed up when we did that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, you got software. Everybody's doing, cloud-based software. It might not work sometimes extensively. Like, for example, for some reason, QuickBooks Online hasn't been working well for me for like 3 weeks now.
It's causing you big problems in your business.
It is causing me issues. But I do have an alternative way of doing business, but it just takes a lot more time and energy and effort to do it that way. But I am about had it with Intuit.
Yeah, I know, right? But, it's the same thing when you talked about my internet outage. I had a plan. In fact, I had multiple plans. You've got the small problem, and I'm able to fall back on that. How long do we think we're going to be down? What work do we need to get done? All right, well, here's location 1, method 1, 2, 3, location 4, 5, 6. We got in-depth plan. Those are the things you build because that's a vulnerability. I can't function without internet is a vulnerability. Right. The threat is the supply chain. A part goes bad, those kind of things. So that's how you're supposed to look at this list. And often everybody makes fun of our list because, if somebody has something, we throw it on there to make you think about it. Even if you decide that it's not one you're going to worry about, it makes you think about it. So we have like 160 on ours.
Yeah, we go through this in great detail in our Project Boot Camp, and it's very, very eye-opening. We make you think about everything.
Yep. All right, so now I got all the stuff I need to protect, all the things that can go wrong. So I've got when these things go wrong, how bad will it be? And this is where people minimize. Don't minimize. No minimizing. How bad will this be if it goes wrong? It will be catastrophic in some cases. But the likelihood, it was like I was joking when we first recorded about an earthquake in Georgia, a major earthquake, not likely. But we just had some more tremors in the state. So I can say a major earthquake isn't likely, but if we had one, it would be catastrophic because we're not prepared. And our buildings aren't built that way. So if that occurred, it would be catastrophic, but it's a negligible likelihood. So it's a risk. I'm going to say it's a very low risk. So again, documenting your decisions as you go through here on why you decided that this is a catastrophic event versus a not catastrophic, this likelihood versus very likely. Document these decisions because somebody at some point is going to ask you why you decided that. Anything that you decide is a super high risk and you're trying to do things about it and somebody questions whether it's a high risk, you're going to need. And the big one is if you rate something as we're not going to really worry about it risk. It's a low risk, medium risk when we're starting out, we're facing, and then it becomes a high risk. Everybody's going to be like, why didn't you think of that? What reasoning did you have? You're going to need to explain yourself. So, and that's also for the next 6 years, that could come up. Make sure, it actually could come up forever these days, but make sure you're documenting your decisions on how you define that risk. Anything that could come into question. Obviously, I don't need to document everything about an earthquake. But you know what? How I decide I want to face what risk I think a hurricane gives us. is very different for me than it is for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is one of those areas where you definitely want to make sure that either you or whoever's on your team, they don't kick into that will never happen to us, or that'll never happen around here.
Yeah. Don't do that.
I mean,
Pandemic.
I'm sure pre-2020, pre-2020, everybody be like, pandemic, what?
Yeah. No. And we had that on there and everybody made fun of us. Why do you even have this?
Or even if he would have thought of it, how many people thought, everybody would be working from home, or we would have major shutdowns and all these other things that ended up happening.
Which is why you don't minimize. Because until you've experienced it, you have no idea how bad it will be. So now we've gone through steps 1 through 4. This is your analysis. Now we switch to an assessment. How do I plan to deal with this? I've defined these risks. What am I going to do? Am I going to control the risk, transfer the risk, avoid the risk? And again, I'm going to document my decisions. What is my plan? Let's just start with what do I plan to do? Controlling it means, okay, I'm going to have people, process, technology. Transfer risk. What's our big number one concern when people go, I'm going to transfer that risk? What is the mindset we need to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, you can't just give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like you can't hire me and say, okay, David, we've hired you to transfer our risk of a ransomware attack. So if we get attacked, it actually is going to ransom your systems, not ours.
Right.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's you still have the same vulnerabilities and such that are there that will affect you. So you're transferring the risk management, not the risk itself.
Not the responsibility for the risk. I mean,
right.
It still will impact you. You still have to have a plan. You're just saying somebody else is going to control that for me. That's the big difference. They're going to help me control it.
It's like the point you brought up earlier. You can't send somebody else to the doctor for you.
Right. I still got to go. That's the whole thing. And so that's your assessment of what we're going to do. Along the way, it gets a little easier for you to go, yeah, okay, I understand I'm controlling that and I'm transferring this, but that's just the way I'm controlling it. Right. So we assess that, we define how we're going to deal with it. Now, once you've done this the first time, you can just go through this and evaluate these risks again to make sure you hadn't changed your mind, that nothing's changed. All right. So now we get into the big part of the assessment. How are we doing?
Yeah. Which is where some people start.
I know, right? Yes.
Yeah. Number 6. So it's time to evaluate.
Yeah. So so we're talking about the control, all these other things. Do you have clear written contracts with your vendors so that it's clear that they understand you are outsourcing your risk management of X, Y, and Z? Who is responsible for what is becoming, we've talked about it. It's becoming absolutely essential to make sure that's defined in very clear detail.
Yeah. Otherwise, it could end up in litigation.
We're seeing so many things there. So you got those. Then do you have documented policies and procedures to make sure that what you intend to be done is actually being done consistently? Plus, you can prove that's what you intended to be done, even though maybe it doesn't get done. Like, I don't know, MFA on public access, it was our policy not to do that. However, it was happening. Then, do I have this laid out? Do I have this documented, how it's going to be handled internally and how I'm going to deal with that division of responsibility and risk management responsibility with the vendors? That has to be documented as well. How is my team going to manage dealing with their team and make sure that they're actually doing their stuff? Somebody's got to keep an eye on it.
Right.
Then the fun thing, the thing that everybody's like, we don't have time for that. Training.
Yeah.
And the thing is, generic HIPAA training is not, that's compliance. I am supposed to do HIPAA training. That is not risk management. And so you fail in risk management when you don't train on your policies and procedures. And if you think just giving somebody the book and telling them to sign off they read it is training, you have clearly never dealt with a teenager.
Yeah. So that is definitely the number 7 part, which is, building your list for improvements, the risk management plan.
Well, one more piece, you have to have a plan for when things go wrong. That's your assessment of where you are and how you're doing. Don't forget to include, do we have a plan if this really goes wrong? That is important. Then we get to, now I know all of this. What is my risk management plan? Where do I need to improve? Boom. I've now done the 7 steps that are required.
Yep. 7 steps in 7 hours. You're done.
But, you take all of that, and I did add in here what you should see in an SRA is all of that documentation that we just created should be attachments to your SRA. Somebody told me they actually printed one of ours, and I'm like, oh my God. And they're like, yeah, hundreds of pages. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
It was like a couple hundred pages. But
because I want to put it on a shelf.
Some people are tactile, and that gives them a written document to have. I get that. I'm just glad I didn't just get a written document. I hate it when somebody's, here's your written document. Now I got to scan all that.
Yeah. Well, there is something satisfying about slamming down a stack of papers on a desk.
Or the big.
You can't do that with you can't do that with a Word document.
No. You click, I'm done. There's no satisfaction in that.
When somebody's like, did you do this work? And you're like, boom, boom. Like, oh, yeah. Impressive.
So the big key is I've done all that work. I've identified all the places I look. I've had all these people involved. I have identified all the things that we're going to really focus on managing, how we're going to manage them, and how we're doing on managing them. So now I can look at my actual risk versus my residual risk. Please, 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 people, do not have one risk that you evaluate. Because if I say our risk of ransomware is now low because we've done all these things, I'm not staying front of mind that ransomware is a huge risk. It's massive.
Yeah, it's always a high risk. Yeah.
So it's a high risk, and the work you're doing, you believe now. You have mitigated it down. I would never say low. I'm just, medium's good enough. Yeah. So I now have all of that, and I take that and I create like a summary document, an executive summary, a report of findings that kind of hits on, here's all of our big stuff. This is what we found. This is how we're doing. It's a narrative of what you determined overall for the organization. And you kind of show how you're doing with charts and graphs and all these different things. And there's guidance on a risk analysis that HHS publishes that talks about the things that should be in your report, which are all the things we reviewed, but you need that executive summary. And there's a similar one that's in the new 800-66 revision 2 from NIST on implementing HIPAA security rule. So we put links in there just to make that easy, but you document everything we talked about along the way. And then the hard part is writing that up. So I'm the one that takes all that data you gathered and all the things that you think you're doing, and I evaluate how you're doing on that, and I write that up and organize all this for you and give you the recommendations and help you work out the risk management plan and what are your priorities. And guess what? Your risk management plan should actually be a plan, not just a list of stuff that needs to be done. Anyway, but we look at it at 2 levels. There's the project plan and then the individual task plans. And all of that should be well documented so that next year I now pull all of that. Then I pull, this is the inventory we had when we put the stake in the ground. And now let's see the updated inventory. Let's see the list of cloud apps. Let's look at, we go through all of our data collection. Are we using new tools? Have we converted to anything? Have we brought in new devices? All of those questions, but now it's a lot easier. But you still have to do it. So there is your comprehensive SRA.
All righty. Very good. Now you know what to do. Go forth and prosper.
Yeah. It's easy. HIPAA made easy.
It's easy. All you got to do. Oh, man. All right, folks. That is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Remember to follow us, share us out. Share this episode with somebody that needs to know. Give us a review. Rate the podcast. We appreciate all that. Remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right. Protect your patients day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.